Hi, and welcome to this DataMiner training. Welcome to the DataMiner SysAdmin part. This is first a short welcome. My name is Bert Vandenbergen. I'm CTO at Skyline, and maybe you already saw me because we are here at the final part, DataMiner SysAdmin. We first looked in fundamentals on how to navigate around in an existing system. Then in configurator level 1, we took a look at how to build a system and add elements and everything around it in a DataMiner system. Then we added that graphical layer with visuals, dashboards, low-code apps. And now we will take a look in SysAdmin on how to manage a DataMiner system and some more advanced modules. So within DataMiner SysAdmin, we will first take a look at System Center. This is this video here, and in there we'll discover how to manage a DataMiner system. Then we will take a look at scripted connectors and how to add a scripted connector. We'll dive a little bit deeper into automation with the Automation Pro and the C# versions of automation scripts and some more advanced features. And then we'll also finally discover the correlation module, which we didn't look at yet. So that will definitely be worth watching as well. But first of all, we'll take a look at System Center. So this is the module System Center within DataMiner SysAdmin. Within this module, we'll take a look at how to manage a DataMiner system, how to add new nodes in a system, how to upgrade those nodes, configure backups, all this kind of management things within a DataMiner system is the topic of System Center here. So what's on the menu? First of all, we'll go into that System Center app and discover that app. Within that app, we'll have different pages, and some of the most important pages for this module are highlighted here. The agents, where we manage our nodes in the DataMiner system, logging to manage the log files. We will configure some backup settings, take a look at the database options, and potentially you want to have some SNMP forwarding to other systems. So we'll discover those different topics in this System Center module. So first things first, the System Center app itself. How can we open that up? Well, we need to go to DataMiner Cube, open up DataMiner Cube, go to that apps section there in the side panel, and there you will find System Center underneath the modules section. If you open up System Center, it will open up on the overview page, which is like showing some tiles with some summaries of the different subpages we have there. So they are listed on the left-hand side as well. So you can select any of those pages to see more details on that. And basically with all of those pages, you can manage your DataMiner system from here. Note certain pages we already discovered, like users and groups we already looked at. And user-defined APIs, for instance, is still coming up later on. So there are some other pages that will be covered in other modules as well. Okay, let's take a look at that in our system. So I'm connected to our training platform. So if you have access to the Skyline Academy training platform, you can connect to that one, or you can spin up a DAS or take a look at one of your own systems. So we go to the apps section, and in there we can go to System Center. When we open up System Center, we see those tiles with those summaries, or we can select one of the pages immediately from the left-hand side. Note that I also, if I close this again, pinned the System Center here to have convenient access. Remember that you can pin items by clicking on the plus sign and then choose which one you want to pin. So that's conveniently accessible there for me because I configured it that way. There's also the possibility to access the System Center by clicking on your username and then going to System Center. So it is available in there. Well, actually, it has two ways of entering. You go for System Center, and then it opens up on the overview page. Okay, that's like we just opened it from the side panel there. If I close it again and click again on my username, I can also click on the icon next to it, the agents page basically underneath System Center, and then it will open up System Center immediately on that agents page. So that's kind of a quick shortcut, you could say, to dive immediately into the agents page. And the agents page is what we want to talk about in more depth in this section here. So on that agents page, I'm able to manage all the DataMiner nodes in my DataMiner system. So if I click on agents, I might see some more nodes popping up there. Our training system only has one, but I do have some other systems here available as well to play with, so that we can take a look at those different features that we have in different DataMiner systems. So I do have multiple nodes doing the job here, because one DataMiner agent or node has limited resources in terms of CPU and memory. So at some point I will need to add some more capacity, or if I want to have some more redundancy in terms of being able to swarm elements, for instance, we'll talk about that later on, I might also want to have some more nodes in my DataMiner system. So in this case, I have 3 DataMiner agents. Typically, you could say like, yeah, how many elements can I add on one node? Well, it will depend, of course, on how many resources one node has, how much CPU cores and memory do we have available, and how heavy your elements are. Or they're very complex, heavy elements, or more lightweight. So typically, I would say somewhere between 100 and maybe 500 for the light elements that you can add on one single node. And then you need to add more nodes to it. We'll immediately add or take a look at how to add a new node in our cluster. But here I want to take a look, if I select one node in my cluster, I can see all the details on the right-hand side of the selected node. So in this case, I selected ITDMA1. We can see that there are some timeouts there. And then I can see the details like the DataMiner ID, the internal ID, and the host name. The host name is the actual computer name of the operating system. So it's grayed out. I cannot change that here. If you want to change that, you need to do like an RDP to the server, change the computer name, do a reboot of the operating system, and then it would change in here. Sometimes the server is managed by the IT and you cannot really change the host name. Therefore, we also allow you to make like to add like an alias, or like have an alternative name, which you can change so that you can have a more meaningful name in that list in the context of DataMiner, like DataMiner DMA 1 and 2 and 3, without having the more cryptic name from your hosts visible there. Like the first one is still a more cryptical name, you could say. Next to that, you have the location, which is 3 arbitrary fields. If you type in an address there, or a building, or a room, or a rack, or a position, doesn't really matter. It's arbitrary just to find your location of this DataMiner node. The cluster is to cluster and start building a DataMiner system. I'll immediately come back to that. And then we also have the IP addresses of that specific DataMiner agent that I selected, which can be used as an entry point to my DataMiner system. So I have 3 DataMiner nodes doing the job here. I can connect to any of those 3. It doesn't really matter which one. I will always see the same thing. It's just the one that I navigate to is the entry point to access the complete system. You always have access to the complete system. There is a small indication on the selected one, like a small eye is on there, like inside the black frame, or the black server, you could say. That's because I'm connected to that one. That's just the only subtle indication you have which DMA you used as an entry point. But in essence, you see the complete system and you see all the elements and everything which is on the DataMiner system, of course. Now, on the lower right-hand side, I do see some buttons there, which are some actions that I can do with that DataMiner agent. So I can stop the DataMiner software, or start or restart the DataMiner software. So the first 2 are stopping and starting the DataMiner software itself. You can also shut down the operating system or reboot the operating system. So that's the complete server you're rebooting there. And upgrading and failover, I'll come back to those 2 actions later on. Now, be aware that those actions might depend on the hosting options you chose for. Because if I take a look at my training platform, I can see I have my VM server here, which is having a certain ID and the name. So I could add a more useful or meaningful name there. And the IP addressing and things like that is available there. But at the actions buttons, I only have the possibility to restart. And that is because this training platform is a DaaS, or DataMiner as a Service. So it's a managed system. So I'm not able to shut down the operating system or reboot it or stop the DataMiner software. It just always runs. It's always available. The only thing I can do is do a restart of the DataMiner software. If I take a look at another platform, let me take the IT platform here and go to System Center. There I will see that I have more DataMiner agents and I have more action buttons as well. So I can select a node and I can do effectively the operating system shutdown or reboot as well. So that's more flexibility I have there, because this is a self-hosted system while the training platform is a full DaaS platform. Okay. So be aware that those actions might be different depending on your hosting options you choose. Okay, so let's talk about that clustering, because I have my training platform with only one node and I have my ITDMS with already 3 DataMiner agents in there. So how does that work? Well, once I'm starting to populate my DataMiner system and I add more and more elements, I might be running out of resources and I might need some more capacity. So for instance, in my training platform here, if I want to add more capacity, I would need to add a new system or a new node in here. How do I need to do that? Well, first of all, you need to make sure you have a cluster. That's the first step, as indicated in the slides. Your first node must join a cluster. So that's the first thing I would need to do. So you can see in this case, in our training platform, that my DataMiner node that I have is not in a cluster. So you can see here the cluster section is empty. So there I need to first specify a name for the cluster that I want to build. And this is an arbitrary name. For instance, I can give it my DMS, or maybe training or lab or staging or production. Or if you have multiple production systems, you might need to choose, oh, it's my IDTV, or it's a media ops environment, or it's more the Earth Station, or whatever kind of maybe project name you give to it. You can just type in any name there. So you specify the name of the cluster you want to use, and then you click on Join Cluster, and then this first agent will be in the cluster, and then I can start adding more servers in there. So if I take a quick peek at our IT system, so this one has already the cluster name indicated, so you can see indeed the cluster is populated of any of the servers. So they already have a cluster. So once I've built that cluster with one single agent in there, I can start adding more agents in there by specifying the IP address or host name of a specific server that I prepared. Once I click on the ads, what will basically happen is this new agent will be added in here and will be combined into the cluster and form a DMS, a DataMiner system, which means that it will be like one entity and everything will be synchronized. So the protocols will immediately be distributed, that both servers have them. The alarm templates, the trend templates, the automation scripts, the users, the filters, everything we have been seeing so far will all be immediately synchronized and will be available on both the DataMiner agents in my cluster. The only thing which is specific for a DataMiner agent is when I add an element onto the DataMiner system, I need to choose which one is going to do the polling. So is it server 1 or is it server 2 that will do the continuous polling of all the data and basically manage that element and hold on to that element to make sure that it is available and generating alarms and trending and all of these things. So the whole processing is something that is specific and that is the job of a DataMiner agent. All the other things are like synchronized and are available in your cluster. So when you add a DataMiner or when you add an element, you need to choose your DataMiner agent you want to host it on. We'll see that you can still later on change that and do some swarming. I'll come back to that. Okay, so remember, if you want to add a new DataMiner agent in your system, make sure that the very first one has a cluster name, and then you can add a new one by specifying the IP address or the host name. Now, how do you install a DataMiner agent? Because, yeah, we here kind of assume that this DataMiner agent is somewhere already available. Well, therefore, I would like to refer to our docs. If you go to docs.dataminer.services and you go to the user guide, the first thing you have there is creating a DataMiner system with creating or installing a self-hosted system. So you can either use a VM image you download, or you can use the installer to install it on an existing server you have. So you have several options there to choose what fits your needs there. So once you installed the DataMiner software on an existing server, or you downloaded a VM image and you spinned up that image, you still need to make sure that the database is also correct. If you're running on STAS or self-hosted, you need to make sure that this configuration is also taken care of within the installation. And then you have a node which is ready to be added, and then you come here and you say like, okay, I added, that's the IP, click, bam, it starts to synchronize, and I can start adding elements and start to further build and grow my DataMiner system. Okay, so that's how you can easily add more nodes to your DataMiner system in this list. Okay, the next action that I want to talk about is upgrading. So if I have built a DataMiner system, I have several DataMiner agents, and a new version becomes available. I want to upgrade my system. How do I do that? Well, that is in that upgrade window. Let's take a look at that. So if you select any of your nodes here, you can go to upgrade on the lower right hand side, and it brings me to that upgrade window. So this upgrade window consists out of a couple of sections. The most important one is the top one. You need to select the package or the version basically you want to go to. So you select that package from your desktop, for instance, because you can download that from you can search on our docs on our community. So you can download that from our website and have it on your desktop, for instance, and then upload it or select it here. Note, these packages can be quite big. Therefore, it is possible maybe the day beforehand to do an upload only. So if you select the package, you click upload only, then it will become available in those available packages here. And then the day when you want to do the upgrade, when you have the maintenance window, you just select the package and it will no longer need to upload the package. So that's why you have the upload only available and you have the available packages. Or you can also select an older package to do a downgrade from the available packages. That's why we have those there. But in general, I go for a new package, I select it, and then I click upgrade. Select package, click upgrade is the most common way without needing to worry about the options we have here. What kind of options do we have here? Well, first of all, you typically upgrade all the agents in your cluster because, as indicated here, all the agents in a DMS must use the same version. So the typical thing is to upgrade everything to the next version. How does that work? If I do that and if I start the upgrades, the package will be taken from my desktop and uploaded to all of the DataMiner agents simultaneously. If I have 5 DataMiner agents, 5 uploads are starting. and I will actually be able to track the progress on the progress tab. It will automatically go to the progress tab. So you will see that upload to 5 of your servers there. Unless you already did the day before the upload only, then that part will be skipped, because package is rather big, and you might have some slow connections maybe to certain remote agents. So therefore, it can come in handy to do an upload beforehand. But typically here, a local network, that will go rather fast. So it uploads all the packages to all of my agents, or it uploads the single package to all of my agents. Once those DataMiner agents received the package, they will do a shutdown of the DataMiner software, and they will replace all the necessary files and do the upgrade actions and start the DataMiner system again. How long does that take? It depends a little bit, I would say, also on the upload and how long your DataMiner agent needs to start up. Because if you have 500 elements or heavy elements, it might take longer than a system where you only have 50 or 100 light elements. So the startup time will take, we need to take into account, and the upload time. Typically, I would say somewhere between 5 to 15 minutes or something like that. It will take to upload the package, shut down, replace the files, start up the DataMiner system again. So typically you do that with all agents in the cluster. You could although go for choose an agent and select one agent at the time. But as mentioned here, they must use the same version in the cluster. So if you go one by one, I would say do it immediately after each other then, and don't do it the week later. Do it all so that by the end of the day, you do have everything again on the same version. Some more advanced options that are available there: extract all files by default. This will be the case so that I can also do an upgrade. Otherwise, it will only upgrade newer versions, which is not handy for downgrades. It by default stops the Windows SNMP. If you would not like to do that, you can disable that. It's doing a delayed start. The services of DataMiner are delayed start, so that the operating system can first fully start up and then DataMiner. Actually, it goes faster that way, so leave that enabled, I would say. Automatically start DataMiner when the Windows operating system starts up, or if you do reboots, indeed, DataMiner must immediately start up as well, unless maybe you have some kind of test environment on your laptop. And you can also do an optional reboot of the operating system after the upgrades of the DataMiner system, if that would be needed, for instance, for OS updates. Failover, that's if you want to do both DataMiner agents in a failover pair or one by the other, you can take a look at those policies. We didn't talk about failover yet. So let's take a look at that. If I go to my training platform, so I can click on upgrade. I select my server. I click on upgrades. I have some of the packages available there, but I can select a new package from my desktop. All the agents, there's only one in there, and just click upgrade, and it will bring me to the next tab page showing the progress of uploading, replacing files, starting up, and all of these things. So that's quite automatic and self-explaining, I would say. I would not worry too much about the advanced options. Typically, you won't need that. Also, if I have multiple nodes in my system, you just select one, you go for upgrade. By default, all the agents are selected. So that's by default the case, even if you started from one agent. Note that there is also the possibility to go for the automatic upgrade check. So we've seen that in the connectors module, where you had the possibility to check for updates. That's also available when you click on your user menu. You can go for check for updates, and this brings that upgrade or check for updates window available. Let me quickly do my login here with multi-factor authentication. Okay, So it's logging in so that it can check the updates. So we had the protocols section, which we saw at the connectors module. Now I'm interested in the software, the DataMiner agent software section. And there we can see that my DataMiner system is up to date. And actually there's an interesting topic that I want to discuss here, and that is located underneath the advanced options. Because if you will take a look at our upgrades on our website, you will have two tracks that you can follow. Either you go for the DataMiner main release, and the DataMiner main release means that you only have one major upgrade per year with new features that are being added. And then throughout the year, you have like on a monthly basis, more like cumulative updates with certain improvements and or smaller improvements and security patches and all of these things, bug fixes in there. So that's one big upgrade with smaller cumulative updates then. Or you can go for the feature release. We are here on the feature release, which means that every month you get the latest and the greatest with all the new features in there. So that's on a monthly basis. You get everything added immediately when it becomes available. So here we are following the feature release. But if you want to more slowly paced upgrades, then you go for that main release, and then it's only once a year you have a major upgrade with new features. Okay, so that being said, that's the upgrades. I would say make sure you are up to date so that all the new goodies are available and you're always up to date with the latest fixes and security patches. Now that failover, I'm not going to spend too much on failover, but there is that possibility to have one DataMiner agent and put a failover pair next to it. So it's a little bit visualized here as well. So you can have one server doing the job and an identical buddy next to it. That's a failover pair. So failover means that you're doubling your DataMiner agents in your system. If you have 5 DataMiner agents and you want to have failover redundancy, you need to add 5 more, maybe on a disaster recovery site. And those ones are completely in sync. Every single bit and piece on one agent is identical on the other one. So whenever one fails, you can just go to the other one and continue the job. It is also possible, of course, if you have 5 DataMiner agents and you say like, oh, yeah, okay, I don't want to have redundancy for all 5 of them. You can just also add a failover for 1 agent in there, or maybe 2 agents in there, so that this one with some very important elements on there have their failover buddy. If something goes wrong, that this one can fail over to his failover buddy. We do also have the possibility to use swarming if one server would go down to move to another machine. So we'll talk about swarming just in a second. Let me maybe disable my phone again after that notification for MFA. Okay. So what is a failover system? There are 2 ways of configuring a failover. You can do it by IP or by host name. Those are the 2 items that are added in here. So if you go by IP, you will see that your original DataMiner agent you have here will remain in there. And you need to specify a buddy next to it. And you will need to specify the kind of like virtual IP that you will share with the outside world, because everybody doesn't really know which server is doing the job at which point in time. So everybody is just going to use the IP address 51 here, and they will navigate to this IP address, and they will be navigating to server 1 or server 2 doing the job. depending on which one is currently doing the job and hosting that 51 IP address. So the 51 IP address is a virtual one, which is going to be shared between the two servers, and the one doing the job is going to host the IP address at that moment in time. So as a user, you don't really need to worry about that. It's quite transparent. You just navigate to the 51, or you send traps, or you send data to the 51, and it will arrive on the server doing the job. This one is currently doing the job. You can switch over to the other one, so you can see the traffic goes to the top one. If you click on the button, it would have fail over to the bottom one in there. If you do failover by host name, that is also possible because sometimes this is kind of difficult to have the same IP address on two different regional locations. If you have a disaster recovery site, for instance, somewhere else, the IP addressing might be different there. So therefore, you can also work with host name. And then the host name will bring you to the server 20 or the server 30 here, depending on which one is doing the job. Note, if you put two data, you can find more information again in the docs on how exactly to set that up. So if you put them into a failover, they will synchronize everything, also the elements that are on there. So then everything is synchronized up to the bit level, you could almost say, and those two servers are then identical. And if one goes down, the other one can take over. How exactly does that work? So you can do a manual switchover, but you can also do an automatic switchover by going to the settings. Next to the settings, you have a little status page you can open up. So this is the status page where you can see that the heartbeat is okay, because those two servers will do a heartbeat to each other, that everything is in sync, all the database things and everything is in sync. So that's just all green is all good, I would say. So that looks good in this setup. Next to that, you have the settings page or the configuration page. This gives me this pop-up where I have a couple of tab pages. On the first tab page, I need to choose between a manual and a automatic switchover. So if it's on manual and one server is going down, I need to click on the button here to manually switch over to the other one to do a failover. Or if it's completely gone, it's no longer possible to access this server here. The IP address is no longer reachable. Then I can just navigate to this one, and then it will give me a button like bring this one online. I click on the button and this one will take over the job. So that's a manual. You could also go for automatic. If you go for automatic, I would say make sure you take a look at the heartbeats. The heartbeats are important because they're going to do a heartbeat to each other. So each, in this case here, each 30 seconds, they will do like a ping to each other. And there is a maximum failures you can configure. So you can edit any of those heartbeats by selecting it and using the buttons below it. So it will do a heartbeat to each other. And if his buddy is gone, he will take over the job. Now, just to make sure that there is maybe a fiber cut or something and the two servers can no longer reach each other, then you would have the situation that both of the buddies would think like, oh, my buddy is gone, I need to take over the job, and you would have two servers doing the job. To avoid that, and the network becomes available again, and both of the servers are online, we will try to gracefully handle that. But in order to avoid that, you can also add like inverted heartbeats. Here there is an inverted heartbeat to an IP address, the 60 IP address, maybe a domain controller or a switch or something that is always there, just to make sure like, okay, if I can still reach that domain controller, then I know that I'm online, I'm on the network, I'm good. If I'm no longer on the network and I can no longer reach that domain controller, then I will go offline. So if the heartbeat fails of an inverted heartbeat, it will go offline. If the heartbeat fails to his buddy, then he will go online. So that's the difference between inverted heartbeats and regular heartbeats. A regular heartbeat is done to its buddy. An inverted heartbeat is done to a third-party place to know that the DataMiner agent is still on the network. So think about those heartbeats that you might need to configure an additional one. By default, they will ping each other to make sure that they are still doing the job. Now, before going into the swarming, let's have a quick look at that failover part. So if I go to, you need to have a self-hosted system because the DAS system is not supporting the failover. So if I go to my ITDMA1, I can go over there to, can I do a failover? Failover is not here available. Let me go to the Zine platform. I have a DataMiner agent there, and there I can configure a failover. Because the other one is a hybrid with a DAS in there, so failover is not supported there. So I can click on failover and I can say, oh, this server, I want to install a brand new failover buddy for this guy. So I can click on failover using IP, for instance. You will see my existing machine is here, and I need to specify a new machine next to it and define what I will use as the virtual IP address as the entry point. So that's the only thing I need to do. I can click on there, specify the IP address of the new server, specify the IP address there. That's my configuration I need to do. That's everything to it. There's more information there, also a link available there if you want to know all the details about how to prepare for this failover. The status page, as I've shown you, it should typically show you all green. The settings page, there, by default, it's manual. If you want to go for automatic, check that heartbeats page. Then you need to add a heartbeat to each other and potentially also to a third-party environment like a domain controller or a switch. Synchronization is the NIC or network interface it will use for synchronization traffic. Some of the virtual IP address, more information here, and some advanced options we don't need to worry about too much. Okay, if you would like to configure it, don't hesitate to reach out also to Skyline support. We will be happy to help you out to set this up to make sure that you have maximum availability in your DataMiner system. Now, talking about availability, we also have the possibility to do swarming or migrating if you didn't activate swarming yet. Now, what is swarming and migrating? Well, by default, the DataMiner system will always be able to migrate an element from one DataMiner agent to another DataMiner agent. So let's say maybe I fully started building a DataMiner system. I had one node, but I added a little bit too much and it's getting slow and I want to add a new node. And now I want to rebalance and I want to effectively use the new resources that I have by adding the new node. So I want to load balance that a little bit. Well, you can do that by using the migrate. You can find that on the status page. So we were first on the manage page where we were able to upgrade our DataMiner agents and see the details of a DataMiner agent. On the status page, you can see your DataMiner agents and the status in terms of like how much CPU they are using, the free virtual memory, free disk space, how long the server is up, how long the software is up, and how many elements are on there. Is this nicely balanced? You can see the first node has like 500 elements, while the second one only have like 50 elements or so. So I want to maybe load balance that a little bit, and I can do that by clicking on the migrate button, which allows me to give to see a list of all the elements in your system. I can select some of the elements, for instance, from that node 75, the first one here with way too many elements. So I select some of those elements on that first node. I select the new destination node, which is the 73, which has still lots of capacity available. So I select the new destination node and I click on migrate. Now, this is a migrate action, which means that the elements from agent 1 will be taken into a package and transferred to the 73 and installed onto the 73. That is because this system is not yet swarming enabled. If your system is not swarming enabled and it still has the migrate button there, well, then you might need to take a look. Let's take a look here. If I go to the, I believe it's under the advanced, or let me search for swarming. Swarming. There you have the enabling the, it was under advanced, the enabling the swarming feature. So here you can see or find more details on how to enable the swarming if it would not yet be enabled. So for instance, on our training platform, let's take a quick look to the status page. So we have our one agent on there. We have 13% CPU power that we use on an average. We have 7 gigs of RAM available, 80 gigs of disk space available. The server is up for 5 weeks. The DataMiner software itself of 1 or almost 2 weeks. And I have 1,400 elements. I said DataMiner agent was only maybe up to 500. Well, note that this system has a lot of simulated elements and a lot of stopped elements. So this is not 1,500 active elements here. But what I wanted to check is, do I have a swarming button available there? No, I do not have a swarming button available because I only have one DataMiner agent in my system. So here everything is missing. So I will need to look at a system with more than one agent. So here I have 3 DataMiner agents. Let's take a look at the status page here. So the CPU power, it's already a little bit more active because those are active elements. 200 elements, 200 elements, 400 elements. Well, actually, the two first nodes have less CPU power than the last node. The last node has more CPU power. So I need to take that into account as well, of course. That's not visualized here. That's why this one is only running on 53 with 400 elements. It's a heavy node. Anyhow, I do see it balanced here, and here I have that swarming button. So here it is swarm active or swarming is enabled. What is the difference with if it would be migrating a migrate action or migrate button here? It means that the elements are still installed on one specific node. If it's indicating swarming, it means that the elements are installed actually or transferred in the database, and they are in the central database, in this case in our STAS database. So they are centrally in the database, so that means that any node in my system can easily pick up that element and start doing the polling, because everything is in the central database, the alarms, the element data, the trending, and the element itself is in the database, and therefore any DataMiner agent in the cluster can easily pick that up, and therefore the swarming is a lot faster. That's what was indicated in the slides, I believe, as well. That swarming allows you to switch faster. And that's also possible to more easily transfer all the elements to a new agent, to free it up, for instance, to do some maintenance work, maybe some operating system updates that you want to do. So you can easily swarm everything to a new agent, or swarm them back, or load balance them in a more faster way. This is also possible to do that API driven. There are low-code apps available to do that. There is automation scripts you can use to do swarm actions under certain conditions. For instance, if you detect a problem, you can automatically swarm elements to another agent. So it's a more flexible way than failover to move elements around. Instead of having one agent with one exact copy next to it, here you can more easily move your elements around to any of the nodes you have in your system. Add a new node, move elements there, etc. Let's take a quick look at how that works. So I do have my 3 nodes in my DataMiner system here. Let's take a look by clicking on the swarming. I will see that I have quite some elements on there. So let's maybe take a look at some of our servers we have here. Let's maybe take some of those here. So you can see I do have some servers that are, let me go up a little bit, that are available on this node 05. So the 32, the server 32 here, that's all on node 05. And server 33, let me deselect those. And if I take server 33, those, not this one, oh, from, it's not easy to select. Let's maybe make it a little bit bigger. So let me select once more the server 33 by selecting the first one, and then I hold and press and hold Shift and I go for the last one. So I have on host 33, I have a guest 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 servers here, which are all currently on node 3. And maybe I want to free up some space on node 3 by moving them to node 5. So I can select a new destination node, and I will basically add some of the 230 elements, some more to that 260 I almost have, so I will overload it maybe a little bit, but I still have some spare capacity. Just to show you how that will work, let me open up one of those elements, so the host 33, and let's take some of those VMs, just the first one for instance. And what I will do now is I will start the swarm action. So I select some of my elements from node 3 and I will move them to node 05 by selecting the new destination node. If I click on swarm, it asks me for a confirmation. Whenever I click on yes, you will see that this user interface of the Microsoft element will quickly show something like swarming, currently swarming. So it's moving, it's on the next server already, and it's starting up again on that next server, and it's finishing or doing all of them. So all of the servers have now been swarmed to the new server. So that's how fast it is. So you can see all of them are started again, and all of the data is coming in again and starting to pull again the data from that new location. So that's the swarming that you can do. You select some of the elements, you select a new destination, and they are being started up on another server. So take a look at that if you want to rebalance the load or if you want to free up a server. Be aware, not all objects today can be swarmed, so that's in the progress of more objects, like for instance services are today not yet available, but maybe by the time you look at this video it will already be possible to do so. Okay. That being said, that allows me to manage my load of my elements across my nodes that I have in my DataMiner system. Let's take a look at the next tab page that I have. There I have the page system. System is just some more informational data about my system, some contacts that I can define, the persons that are responsible, you could say, the admins. This is just arbitrary information. Some name of your company with address details, website, and a logo you can add there as well. And that information is being used, for instance, when in the reports, if you want to include that in the header, your logo of your company will be added in there with your details of your company. That's what you specified in here. And the name field is basically also being used in the surveyor root structure. So if I go to my training system, let's go to my training. You will see that this is Global Telecom Corp. Well, indeed, if I go to system, you will see this is Global Telecom Corp. So the name of your system is the root of your tree structure there. The email address will also be by default the from email address when DataMiner is sending emails, but you can also override that if you want to do so in the DataMiner XML. Okay. Let's go back to the slides. So you can play around with those things. That is quite self-explaining, I believe. So you can, if you want to change that, there is a possibility to just change that and click on the save on the lower right-hand side. The last tab page I want to discover here in the agents page is the BPA or Best Practices Analyzer. The BPA page does different analysis of your system to make sure that it is according to our recommendations. It's not that everything is immediately a big problem, but it might contain certain recommendations and certain checks, and those checks can be easily updated as well. So we can have more checks there. For instance, time server, the time needs to be synchronized in a DataMiner system, so we can do some checks around that. Is there an antivirus running? Here we have one issue detected, and let me show that in our training system because we have it there as well. So if I go in our training system to BPA, you will see that there is one that has failed. So I can open that up and I can see that they detected an issue here. And what is it? There's like an outdated MySQL data DLL on that protocol script folder. If you click on the 3 dots, you can see more details or the full explanation there. So apparently there's some outdated protocol there, which is still referencing an old DLL, which is outdated. So that might also be related more to security, or for instance, that ports or not open security advisory will typically do these kind of things. Note that you can manually execute one of these BPAs. So if you just installed a BPA, you can execute it here or execute all of them. And there is also a schedule. So by default, they come with a schedule. So some of them are never executed. They're only a manual action. And some of them we will do once in a while. And for instance, every day, every week, every shorter period of time. And that allows you to immediately pinpoint also that certain issues are there. For instance, in our IT DMA, you will see here we have an indication already that a BPA failure is there, and we might need to take a look at that recommendation. So some of them can be scheduled so that they run on a regular basis. For instance, certain things with the database, and if the database is still healthy, might be good to run that every day, that not over time your database becomes unhealthy. Okay, so that's a little bit to keep an eye on the health and if your DataMiner system is still according to our recommendations there. So that's the BPA best practices analyzer. Okay, time to take a look at the next page, which is the logging page. The logging page allows me to give access to all kinds of logging, and there are actually 4 sections in that indicated on top. The first one to discover here is the cube logging. The cube logging shows you really about this cube session, more information about it's contacting the server, it's getting all the information and connecting and all of these things. So if I would take a look at the logging page here, in my training session, I would see when I connected, which version it is running. I would see that it took how many milliseconds it took to connect to the system, etc. And each time you have some more details there as well. So that's really logging up to even debug logging you can activate in there. It might be that maybe support is asking you, can you maybe export that debug information with one of the buttons there at the bottom, and maybe email that if something would need to be investigated. Okay, so that's for the cube application. The next tab page we have is the communication between cube and the server. Not the stream viewer. We saw the stream viewer, that's between the DataMiner agent and the actual elements and devices. We're doing all the raw polling of the elements. Here we see the communication between my client interface, the DataMiner Cube interface, and the server. And in this case, you see a bunch of incoming alarms, for instance, because continuously we're getting new updates. This is a real-time updating interface. So we see that live communication between the server and your client. Okay, so the next page is then the actual log files divided between DataMiner and elements. DataMiner shows me all the logging of the DataMiner components. Let's take a look at that. If I go to DataMiner, You will first of all find a section for every node you have in your system. So every node, I only have one here, will have its own log files. And if you open it up, you will find log files, for instance, for DataMiner or for automation or for all these kind of different modules, correlation, etc., etc. So there's a whole series of log files that you can find in there. For instance, automation, I've been playing with automation in one of my previous modules. So if I go all the way down maybe and then a little bit up, I will indeed see that I have here some training BERT scripts that were executed, things like that I was playing with. So remember also in that script, I was able to add some logging there as well. That's popping up in here then. Okay, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I just want to mention there are log levels, which are by default indicated next to it, no, 000. So that's good to have everything configured on level 0, which is the most basic form of logging, just starting up and things like that. That keeps things under control. It is possible to go and say, like, I'm going to change the default for all the components or for one file only, like the DataMiner log file. And for instance, change that from low logging 0 to level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to everything, which is already quite a lot of information. And you can even go into a dangerous zone, you could say, with development logging. And I say dangerous because it could even slow down your system if it needs to write that much information to your hard drive, that your hard drive or your SSD is a little bit overloaded, and the DataMiner is getting a little bit slower by writing everything to the disk. But also writing to disk consumes CPU power to compose the strings and things like that. So I would say if you don't need it, always make sure you leave it on 0 because that will be the most resource friendly, you could say. Only if you really want to debug something, go to maybe maximum log everything. And then even when you're finished, put it back on no logging. Development logging is really more for a developer troubleshooting something, or maybe a driver connector that you are doing with the element logging. Now, what else do I want to mention in the logging module here? First of all, there is one which is consolidating the errors of all the different modules, of all the different log files combined in here, and also errors in protocol you have. And there is one more that I want to mention here, the watchdog. We do have a watchdog on the DataMiner, on every DataMiner node, which is keeping an eye on all the different processes running on the system, that they are still doing their job. So for instance, the SL element protocol, the SL DataMiner, the automation module, they all need to continuously report to the watchdog that they are still running fine. If one of the modules would no longer be reporting that it's going fine, then it would generate, the watchdog would generate a so-called runtime error, and it would say that, well, there's a thread maybe in a certain process which is not reporting back. Maybe it's doing a lengthy operation, that's possible, or maybe we need to further investigate. So the watchdog is keeping an eye on that and is keeping track of that as well. If DataMiner would restart, you would also see in here if somebody would click the restart button, why they restarted, things like that, if they provided a explanation. For any log file, you can always right click on there as well to open up the previous one, because here we do have some logging from nearly 2 weeks ago. But if I want to take a look at the previous log file, I can open up the previous one as well, and then I can see one which is going back more than a month, and I can take a look at what happened there, and maybe why this DataMiner was restarting there. Okay, so remember that you can right-click to open up the previous one as well. Okay, so next to the log file of all the different components of a DataMiner system, we do also have the element section. So the element section will have for each and every element in your DataMiner system a log file. And you can select that log file and open up the log file or open up the previous one. Again, with the log levels for that specific element, I will see the details. So if I'm developing a driver and I want to further investigate certain things, I can just right click on my elements like my IRD01 and I can go to view instead of stream viewer and see the actual communication, the polling traffic, and I can also open up the log and then it will basically open up my system center, immediately go to logging, immediately go to the elements, immediately go to my IRD1 and open up this log file and I can see it's starting up the protocol and loading all the different things. And I might need to have some debugging, troubleshooting I want to do there when developing a connector. So I would say that's probably more for the driver developers that they can investigate certain actions there that they are working on. Okay, so that was the logging module where we are able to track all those log files from DataMiner and from elements. But of course, we need to make sure that we're not overloading the hard drive with logging. So there is a limit on the size of the log files, especially if you do a lot of logging, like log everything. After 10 megabytes, what will happen is if we reach 10 megabytes and the file size is 10 megabytes, we will start again at the top of the log file and overwrite any contents already in there. So it is possible that the certain log files, let me maybe check, not sure, I saw that there was one which is configured higher. No, there's no, let me check if DataMiner has a lot of logging. Seems to have a lot of logging, but yeah. At the end of the file, I see all the stars. This means it's still writing here at the end. If it would be starting all over again, then you would find the series of stars somewhere in the middle. So you would also see at the timestamp, of course, that it's overwriting somewhere in the middle. So keep that in mind that it's not, it's starting over after 10 megabytes. So where can I define that? Well, that's one of the system settings. So I have a section here, system settings. And in the system settings, I do have certain general settings, like for instance, my upgrades. Do I always want to upgrade automatically or start my DataMiner automatically? You can actually change the defaults of your upgrades window. The logging here, 10 megabytes by default. All log files are 10 megabytes. If you want to save some space, you can put it on 5. Or if you want to go further into the history, you want to maybe increase that. 10 is a good default. There are some more items in here. I'm not going to go through all of them in the system settings. One we already discovered as well a little bit was the analytics config, where there are some more analytics features that you can enable and disable here, like or trend icons, for instance. So there are many more things to discover here. But in general, you will also find the necessary help in docs, and then you can find more information there and configure it here. Okay, so there is a limit to our log files. That's what I wanted to mention. Okay, what's the next page? That's backup. Well, two things about backup. First of all, that backup page is not always going to be available. It depends a little bit on your hosting options again. Let's take a look. My training platform doesn't have the backup page. And that's not there because I'm running on a DaaS, a DataMiner as a service system. So it's a hosted platform. I don't need to worry about backups. Backups are automatically taken. You can find more information in the help on how that works. So there are snapshots being taken for, you can go back up to 30 days. So if you ever need to go and do a rollback, then you need to open up a support ticket and you can do a rollback. So that's not available on our system here, but I do have it available, for instance, on our Zine platform. There I do have a backup available. I can see on the top it's doing a backup on the network. It keeps 7 items every day, and it's a predefined type. Let's take a look at those details in the slides. So if I go to the backup page, there are 3 things that I need to configure. If you want to configure backups, well, I would, if it's a self-hosted system, I would highly recommend to configure backups. Unless you would do VM backups already and you have a full snapshot and a full backup of your VM that you save somewhere on a secure location. That could also be sufficient. If you don't have a full VM backup, then take a look at the backup page here. The first one is some general details, then the schedule and the content. So some general details is where do we need to store that backup? You can store it somewhere locally on a D drive or something, but of course you have to be careful that your D drive is not just another partition on the same hard drive, and that could crash. So therefore, typically you might need to rely on some kind of network path. You can have one network path for all the agents. So if you have like 3 DataMiner agents, do they all go to the same share? And then you need to specify the share and the username and passwords. And all the 3 servers will, for instance, every night put a backup on there. You could also say, yeah, I have some agents in the US and some in Europe. So therefore, you could also say, I want to use a different path for each agent, and the agents in the US are going to save it on a server somewhere in the US. The ones in Europe are going to save it somewhere on a file share in Europe to not transfer that backup across the ocean. Or if you don't have a location somewhere available, you could also say that the first DataMiner agent is going to back up on a share you created on the next agent, and then the second one on the third, and the third one on the first again. That's also a possibility if one of your agents disappears, that you still can take the backup from the next one. So think about that location where you need to store your backup. And the next thing, which is also very important there, is how many backups do you want to keep? How far do you want to go back in time? Because if you have every day a backup and you have 4 backups, then you can go back in time 4 days. Well, because a backup is useful if your server suddenly disappears and IT doesn't know anymore where it is and it's completely gone, then you want to go to a backup to restore your precious system. But it is also protecting you against somebody that maybe on a Friday evening, they delete certain things and they go home. And then on a Monday morning, I suddenly discovered that things were deleted from my system. Then I want to be able to go back to my backup of a couple of days ago to restore any of the things that they might have deleted, maybe by mistake. Note that brings me to a small thing that I want to mention here is be aware that a lot of actions, most actions in a DataMiner system, when you do them, DataMiner will first take a backup. So when you, for instance, delete an element, before we delete the element, we will first take a backup of the element and then do the delete. If you, for instance, delete a view, we will first take a backup of the view structure and then delete the view. If you delete an automation script, we first take a backup of the automation script, then we delete the automation script. And we all do that in the recycle bin. So a node in a DataMiner system, on a node, on the file system itself, there will be a directory, the Skyline DataMiner recycle bin directory, where you will find all of those actions that you did and those backups that are being stored there. So even if you don't have a backup, it might still be worth looking at that recycle bin. The chances are great you might find in there a backup of the things that were deleted. The recycle bin has limited size in number of files and the file sizes, or the size of the directory, but it can still go back in time quite a while. And if it's a DAS system, don't hesitate to reach out to support and they will be able to help you out in any case. We will have several backups of all kinds of shapes and forms. So you're fully covered there. Okay, so after I defined the location and the number of backups I want to keep on the second tab page, which is indicated here, I need to define how frequently I want to do the upgrade, backup. In this case, it's only weekly, every Sunday. I would not recommend weekly. I would rather go for daily, every night. For instance, you do a backup and you keep it, for instance, four times. And the last tab page, the content tab page, is what needs to be in there. I would just say go for the full backup with or without database. If it's a central database, it doesn't really matter. Configuration backup is a couple of items are not going to be selected then, or you can go for a custom and then you can check whatever needs to be in there. But in essence, I would say don't worry too much about it. I would just say go for a full one and everything is in there. That should be not that big in any case. So full backup kind of is the more comfortable option, I would say, and going with that would be good. With or without a database, note if you're using a central database cluster somewhere, you need to manage that separately, and you need to make sure you have sufficient redundancy and backups on that central cluster. So it's only for local databases that you do have that option to include the backup here of your database. So typically nowadays with central clustered databases, it's not applicable, and you will only take a backup of your DataMiner agent without the database. The database you need to manage separately, or you just use STAS, storage as a service, which is going to be fine in all cases and have sufficient redundancy and backup out of the box. Okay. So that's my backup. Let's take a quick look at my backup on my Zine platform. So my Zine platform and the backup page, I can see it doesn't do a local backup. It stores it somewhere on the network path. Let's have a quick look. Oh, over there with the username and the passwords. That seems okay. It's going to take 7 backups here. And if I take a look at the schedule, daily, every day at 1 o'clock. So every day at 1 o'clock, and I can go back 1 week. That's quite nice. And what will be in there? A full backup without database. Sounds like a great config on this system here. So that would be my recommendation as well. Okay, so let's take a look at that database page as well. Well, again, a little bit like with backup, it depends a little bit on what your hosting will be, on what you will have in there. Well, here we can see that we have a general page with the possibility to configure your database per agent or per cluster. Those are the two things you have. But if I go and take a look at my training platform and I go to database, I don't have a general database here because it's a DAS system. It's a DataMiner as a service. It's a hosted system. I don't need to worry about the database here. That's managed for me. If I go to the Zine platform and I go to the database, I will see that I have over there a general page, and I do see that this one is running on STAS. So you could also run on Cassandra and have your own database there, but this one is running on STAS. So the most easy way of hosting your data or having that database available with all the storage capacity is going for STAS. STAS is storage as a service. It is fully redundant. It has all the backup and high availability there because it's not even using Cassandra and Elastic. It's using cloud native storage in Microsoft Azure. So you can choose the data center in Microsoft Azure, and in that data center it will leverage Cosmos DB, table storage, those cloud native high available systems with all the redundancy and scalability and everything on it, with fully secured and up-to-date systems always readily available for you. So that's the most easy and efficient way of moving forwards. So STAS is definitely highly recommended. If you really need to have it self-hosted, then you can host your own Cassandra cluster and Elastic cluster. I'm not going to go into details on setting up a Cassandra and Elastic. You can find more information in our docs. And then you need to specify my Cassandra cluster, where is it? And my Elastic cluster, where is it? Elastic OpenSearch. Just make sure if you set this up, do it correct. It's not an easy job, but make sure you have sufficient capacity, redundancy, security, up to date, all of these things. It takes a little bit of management, but take that job serious because it is important that you're not losing your data and that you keep things secure and up to date and well managed. If you want to not to take care of that, go for STAS. That's very easy. Click and go. That is. Okay, so that's how I can configure my database. This is self-hosted, typically per cluster. I would say these days go per cluster and not per agent anymore. Per agent is that every node has its own DataMiner agent, but typically now we want to go for a cluster so that we can easily swarm as well with our elements, for instance. And it's always readily available from any node. Okay, next to that database page, we also have on the system settings some time to live configuration. The time to live is here you define how long your data is being maintained in the database. If you have STAS, you can find more information on our docs. If you have a self-hosted, you can configure it over here. So for instance, real-time trending, I mentioned it's typically like a day or 2 days, 24 or 48 hours. So here you can configure that. My 5-minute slots in the average trending typically go for like a month. That's like 1 month. My hour records typically average trending go up to a year. Day records can even go beyond a year. So you can configure those settings in here. This is not a year, but this is tweaked a little bit, so you can change that in here. So this is trending. We also have that for our alarms and our history slider. And you also have that for spectrum traces. Be aware, this is a time to live. That means that whenever we generate an alarm, we put the expiration date on the alarm when we write it to the database. So if you suddenly change your mind and you say like, well, instead of keeping the alarms here for 52 weeks for a year, I want to keep them for 2 years. Well, everything which is already in there will be expired after a year. It's only the new alarms that are being generated that will have an expiration date or a time to live, a TTL, of 2 years. So only starting from now onwards, the new alarms will be kept for 2 years. So keep that in mind. It is not going to change the TTL of the existing alarms that are already in your database. So only for new records being written to your database, the TTL will be changed. Okay, so you can change those things for the Cassandra and the indexing. And there are also some overrides you can even do for specific, you can add some protocols in there or connectors like the Microsoft platform. Maybe you want to keep the data longer for specific drivers or connectors. That's even possible as well. Okay, what else is available there? The offload database. We do have an offload database in our training platform. So it is possible to offload the data to a database or to files. So it means that we can offload certain data to a third party, a self-hosted database or files. Note for database, you do have a couple of options like MySQL or SQL Server. If you want to offload to something else, maybe some kind of cloud service, I would say you offload to files and then you have some script on the nodes that will take the files and just ingest the files and load it into your cloud service. So we can basically support any offload to any destination, but then we go via the file offload. We offload to files and we have something picking up those files to ingest them into any kind of destination. If you go for database and you choose a certain database, you will need to specify the specifics of your database, where it is located, how to connect to it, and then you can specify what needs to be offloaded. What do we have in a DataMiner system that you can offload? Three things. We have the alarms. So you can choose any of those, all of them or one. Maybe you just want to have some kind of central database with all the alarms there so that you can run your own reporting on there. Or for compliance reasons, you need to keep that somewhere in an offload data warehouse for a longer period of time. You can offload it to that destination there. So this is alarms. You can offload the alarms with the associated other tables there, the alarm table itself, and maybe the information events as well, and some other tables to it. There's more information in docs. You can also offload trending. So the trend graphs, real-time trending, average trending. So the first one is the real-time trending. The second one is the average trending. And there are some more details to that for the trending. So you can offload every change or continuously or only every 5 minutes so that it's not too much data. All the time frames are only 5-minute slots or 60-minute slots. So lots of options. You can play around with that. It's kind of self-explaining when you play with it. So you can optionally offload your trend information, average and real time. And then the last one that is available there underneath there is your real-time values of your data displays, of all the parameters you have in your DataMiner system. Well, not all of them, because if you want to offload parameter values, you have typically millions of parameters in a DataMiner system, so that might be quite a lot. Therefore, if you enable that snapshot, you need to specify in the information templates. Here we have the information template, and you can specify if this parameter, like the total processor load, if it needs to be part of the snapshot, yes or no. If it's part of the snapshot, my total processor load of any of my servers will be part of that snapshot, and that snapshot will be taken, for instance, every 5 minutes. And every 5 minutes, I'll take a snapshot of all the total processor loads of all of my servers and put it in this offload database. Or maybe all the receive levels of all my IRDs will be a snapshot taken every 5 minutes into my database here. And you can do that with any parameter that you activate for snapshots there. More information is also available in the help or docs section. One last thing on the database, that's in the tools section. Let's take a look at that because yeah, the other page, don't worry too much about that. That's more like for an inventory database. We can add that in here so that this is available there, not to worry about. We saw the system settings already as well. Now let's take a look at the tools because in the tools we have the possibility there. Yeah, we don't have a database here, so let's go to our tools in our Zine platform. So we have that query executor there, as indicated in the slides. There's a big warning in the slides there. Let me go to slides. Be careful because those commands are directly sent to your database without any filtering, without anything. So you can just have like admin access to your database. So this query executor only provided to the super admin, I would say. This is not for an operator. So you can actually query directly onto the database there. You can choose which server and start executing some queries. So you have some examples there as well and see the result set there at the bottom. There are some other tools there to force synchronization of files or a complete DataMiner agent. When you want to clean up, for instance, connectors which are currently not in use anymore, if over time you have installed many more new versions and you want to clean up those older versions, or you want to clean up some alarm filters or Visio files which are not being used anymore, you do have some cleanup tools here. And the text message is part of the mobile gateway. Mobile gateway is not covered in this. That's where you can send text messages with your with a cell phone attached to the DataMiner system. So not to worry about in this series here. Okay, so that was the database page with the query executor as the final item there. Now, the last section is the SNMP forwarding. Let's take a look at the SNMP forwarding, because this page will allow me to forward via SNMP information like alarms to another external system. So we already saw that we could do offloading to a database more for reporting purposes maybe. We can also send real-time any alarm that happens in a DataMiner system to a third-party system, so that maybe over there certain actions can be taken with those alarms. How can you do that? Well, on the SNMP forwarding page, you have all the SNMP managers that you can add in there. So you can add a new one in there, and in there you just see the details on the right-hand side where you give it a name. You can enable, disable it for a moment. What is an SNMP manager? Well, it's a destination, so you need to specify an IP address, and DataMiner will basically send SNMP traps or inform messages to that destination whenever an alarm happens. So whenever an alarm happens in DataMiner, it will go through this list and make sure that every of those destinations or SNMP managers will be notified of the new alarm. Let's take a look at that and how that works. So we specify the IP and the name and the IP address. There's a community string on a trap. You can specify that. A custom description is like more for filtering purposes. On the other side, you can play around with that. The next thing is the SNMP version. If you choose version 2 and 3, you can also send a inform message, because an inform message is like an enhanced trap. Because a trap, an SNMP trap is being sent and it's over UDP, so we don't know if it's arriving, yes or no, and there's no acknowledgement, so we don't know. Therefore, we will also have some resend capabilities, so that we can resend alarms now and then. If you go for the inform messages, that's the enhanced version of a trap, you could say. Whenever a trap or an inform message is being sent, the other side will send an acknowledgement that this inform message has effectively arrived on the other side. And I can say like, oh, that's good. I can go to the next one. So think about how to forward those alarms to the other system. There is an optional send all the notifications via one agent. So if you only want to have one node in your system to send all the traps, so that it's creating a single point of failure, but sometimes for firewall or license reasons, you want to have one source IP address. And the port number is by default 162, which is quite okay. So that's the general section. The next section is then the notifications. That's defining a little bit what I will send. The encoding type should be fine. Some OID specific things in a trap without going into too much detail. I will here define all the custom bindings are basically the columns in my alarm console. So in my alarm console, I have the name of my elements, the system name, I have the parameter name, the value, the severity, and all of the other columns. I can also add and remove and change the order, because maybe I have a custom property, gold, silver, bronze, I also want to forward, or there's maybe some alarm property with the trouble ticket ID that is specified that I also want to attach in there. So here you choose the columns that you want to forward. Okay, the next one is the resend options. As I said, if you go for just plain old traps, you might maybe want to reset every now and then, maybe not every 30 seconds, but maybe every couple of minutes with some special options during the resend. And let me go to the SNMP because it's not in the slides. There is an SNMP manager in this system, so we can see there are actually two of them. So we can see the destination, which is actually localhost as a test here. SNMP v1 trap messages. So then the resend is very simple. Just resend all the active alarms every X amount of time. If I go for the inform message and I go to resend, I will see that there is a number of retries. And it will retry every 10 seconds, for instance. So if we don't immediately get an acknowledgement, we will do a retry after a number of seconds. And we do a maximum number of retries as well. And you can also define that they should be sent chronologically as well. The resend everything is also still available. So retry mechanism is for the inform messages. Okay, so that was the notification page and the resend page. Now the filter page. Typically, I don't want to forward every single alarm in the DataMiner system. Typically, it's more to really warn the other system about major failures. For instance, all the critical alarms need to be forwarded or only filtered on certain sites, but not the warning things. So here we have the filters that we have already discovered during other modules like the alarm console. It's the same filter that is being used in here, but in this case, if I would go and take a look at filters and I want to add a new filter in there, you would see that you can only add a protected and a public filter, not a private one. Why is that? Well, here we are configuring system settings, and there might be other administrators looking at this. So I cannot create and use a private filter here that is only available for my user, because then my colleague would not be able to see my filter here and see which filter is being used for the forwarding of the alarms. Therefore, in this kind of system level setting, you can only go for protected and public filters. And therefore, you should also be careful if you change a public filter. Think about that maybe it's being used by other people or even for forwarding alarms to the other systems you have in your network. So the filtering happens here as we have already seen previously, so I don't need to go into too much detail on those. The last page is some possibility to provide some alarm storm things. You can have more details in the UI and in the help. So it's just to make sure if an alarm storm happens and thousands of alarms are being generated in DataMiner, that not everything is being forwarded to the other system, but after maybe 20 alarms within a short period of time, it will stop and go into some kind of alarm storm mode for a certain period of time. So that's the alarm storm that is in there. Now, this is the result. So if I have an alarm like the London IRD audio output level, and I capture this with a trap receiver, I would see a trap coming in with some details that are generic information on a trap in the top, and then all the bindings. So then you can basically see, oh, it's the London IRD audio output level, the value, the severity. Those are all the bindings of a trap that are attached to it. So a trap has some general information and then some bindings, the columns that are coming along with it. So this can be forwarded to other systems. So that's our trap forwarding or inform messages. That's why it's SNMP forwarding, a general term that we have in here. So we saw a destination with some columns that I can define. I could say the resend capabilities, the filtering capabilities, and the alarm storm capabilities. So that's probably the most important things that I covered now on the System Center. So we looked at the agents page. The cloud is just your cloud connection. Your system is cloud connected. That's some more information about that. Nothing much to do. User-defined APIs comes up in automation. Users and groups we already covered previously. And those modules we just saw, database, backup, and SNMP forwarding. Mobile gateway is not going to be covered here. This is just a simple option, nothing much to talk about and more advanced. System settings, we saw a couple of them. You can take a look at some more of them. The logging, where we accessed all the log files, and the tools with some more tools, for instance, to clean up some of your old connectors or old alarm filters. So that was the System Center module. We took a look at all of those different pages and we went a little bit more in depth on some of the most important pages to manage your DataMiner system, like adding nodes, upgrading your nodes, swarming elements. Those are the actions we do in our DataMiner system and what we discovered in this module. So I hope you enjoyed it and see you in the next one.